Alright, so this is going to be part one of my little digital art course that I'm making mostly for my friends, but I'm going to upload it to YouTube for the public because why not? To be honest, I'd love to share this with random people, and I'd love it if random people saw it, so I'm just gonna be putting it out there. Uh, I'm going to be going over a couple things in this video that might not apply to everybody. I'm going to be going over how to use FireAlpaca in a effective way, honestly. A lot of these settings and stuff will carry over to other programs, so even if you don't use FireAlpaca, this could be useful to watch. But if you already think you have a good grasp on your digital media program, then you can skip this perfectly fine. It's not even going to be, I'm probably going to call this like the prologue to my little series on how to use, like, how to make digital art. And it's mostly how to make digital art, but this can carry over to traditional, obviously. But there's just a couple things that I'd like to go over for starters. The first would be this. I have this funky little file over here. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the drawing is, honestly. It's that when I try to close it, it won't close, right? So watch this. I get an error. But the way to fix this problem, oh my god, my brain, is you go over to your task manager and you find the com surrogate, you close that. That's what's preventing the file from saving under its original name. Did it close? I believe it did. Let's go. And now, if we try to close it, it closes just fine. Wonderful. All right, so first, when you open the program, you're not going to have a file. You're going to hit File, you're going to hit New. You're going to do whatever little settings you want. I usually like to go for just a regular 720. Yeah. So the color, just go for transparent because, yes, it's just a lot more convenient. The comic settings are really confusing. I just recommend ignoring them. the Don't like mess with the RBG or the CMYK. It is just like unnecessary. Don't go for like paper size because we're not really like thinking about like printing this unless you are thinking of printing this, which I would recommend not doing because that's a lot of ink. Just keep it digital. So we have this new file, right? Usually what I go for is I make things into a folder because if you just like try to copy paste a single file or a single layer and try to like show it other places, it doesn't work because FireAlpaca is pretty bad at exporting transparent images. When you just copy paste like that, it'll just make the background black. So instead, if you use a folder and you make the base layer white, then you can basically export whatever you want. It'll be fine. So FireAlpaca has a nice little variety of brushes already available to you when you first open up the program. Oh, sheesh. You can like mess with the shapes of these. It's pretty cool, pretty great. The base level brushes are actually pretty good, but you can like easily make brushes by just finding a PNG or a JPEG of just some random texture, like this one here. It's literally just it's just a random paint texture, and it creates this nice little brush here, right? So creating brushes is quite easy. You figure out these buttons. It's great. The eraser, pretty simple. This is just like a single width pixel brush. I don't really know what practical application it has. I'd never use it. You can make it 3 pixels. Wow, but I've never had like a practical application for this one. This is just if you have something on this layer, you can click this, which will just move it. Alternatively, you could just hit select transform, and you can do that way. But I can see why it would be convenient to just use the brush, or not brush, but that. This is just a shape creator. Not very useful when just making art, because who just makes a shape? Like, who does that? Also, you make it a square. I've never used that before in my life. So obviously, paint bucket tool, pretty typical. You can make it so that so you see how this brush has like this, the like partially transparent part of the brush, you know? Usually when you have a paint bucket tool, it messes up, right? You can make it expand pixels so that in a lot of areas it will just kind of fill in, and if you just do it again, fills in, fills in, fills in, fills in, fills in, bam, it's all gone. It's simple like that. So if your line art has a bit of texture and you're just trying to fill in shapes into it, you can just kind of do it multiple times, you know? So say we've got this guy, want to make him red. You see how it's got that weird artifacting? Just bam, 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 bam. And if that doesn't help, just honestly, wob. Wow. A little man. There he is. Alright. Alright, so we've got our gradient tool. The gradient tool is a fun little doodah, fun little guy. It corresponds to the two colors that you have selected. It will typically, when you first use it, go from foreground to the background color. The one behind is the background color. But you can change it to be from the foreground to a transparent color. So if I do it here, see, transparent. Or you can make it from a transparent to the foreground color. Yeah, very great. You can make it a circle. Very cool. I use that option very sparingly. I use the gradient very sparingly in general, to be honest. So let's say we've got this nice little thing here, right? I want to take out this section. You use this square brush. You can just select, transform, boom, there he goes. Look, it's like weird now. Wow, very cool, right? But there's a lot of settings up here that you can mess with. The round corners setting, which like doesn't really, if you click it on, yeah, it's a circle. I don't really see the point of that. To be honest, I don't really see the point of it. I've never used the round corners. You can turn off anti-aliasing, so it's very, very square, like pixel perfect square without anti-aliasing. It sometimes will be, nah, never mind. It just, yeah. The select from center, I've never used that before in my life. It's really wonky. The constraint proportions, the square, really wonky. I never use that. There's the freehand selector, so you can actually have some niceness with that. Yeah. Basically the same settings up there with that. There's the magic wand tool, which will basically just select all that. If I select the red, it'll select that, but because I have it only set to expand at 1 pixel, it'll leave behind like the textured part that it doesn't grab. But if I expand it to 3 pixels, it will still be kind of wonky. It'll still leave some behind, but it's definitely better. The fill in gaps thing is like kind of self-explanatory. If there's like if it's like this and you select here, this is like considered a gap, it'll select it. So say it's like that, right? Bam. It tries, but it's hard. It's like difficult for it to figure out, you know. Yeah, if you turn it down, it like selects everything. Very cool. We've got, so these tools all right here are all selection based. If we grab this guy, he selects in the shape of whatever brush you're using. So it's like you're using the brush that you have selected as the selector, right? So you can just grab that. Because this brush is semi-transparent, it grabs it in a semi-transparent manner. Very cool. This can allow you to get some really precise selections. So say I want this, but then I want it like that. I want to take a little ass out of it. Yeah, let's go! You see? Very fun. This is the exact opposite. It's just the same thing, but if you have a selection here, you can erase parts of it. Very cool. You can also alternatively do that by just hitting the transparent color over there. That turns your brush into a eraser. Very cool. So, oh, I should probably go over that. So, we've got our thing here, right? The normal eraser has just like the baseline, very simple settings, right? Just a normal anti-aliased brush. You could turn off the anti-aliasing, so it's very pixelated. But alternatively, you can make the brush that you're currently using into an eraser by selecting this little transparent tool and then keeping the anti-aliasing on. So, or wait, flat brush, yeah. So look, yeah, eraser, very cool. As we go down here, this is a text tool. It's really wonky and really hard to operate, so I just don't, to be frank. This one, I just don't even remember what it does. That's how little I've used it. It probably doesn't really do anything. So this is the tool that you use when you're in the comic settings. It doesn't work in the normal settings, so just don't gotta worry about that. The color picker, very nice, very nice, very nice. Also for Nina, since I know you're gonna have the little Wacom tablet, the buttons on the pen, there's one button on top of the other. If you click that one, it functions as a right click and it'll use the dropper tool automatically. Yeah. And this one just moves the whole canvas around. Very cool, very fun. And now we shall go over how to mess with the layers. This video is going to be a little long because there's just a lot of stuff to cover, but I'm just trying to do everything kind of baseline. The ultimate way to like understand an art program is honestly just get a file and fiddle it with it for a couple hours and just like do random crap. Don't try to make like a good drawing. Just fiddle with it, play with it, figure out what every button does, because a lot of these programs, they don't label their buttons. So you just kind of gotta figure it out. You gotta explore, you gotta figure it out. But I'm here to alleviate some of that, trial and error. So here are the very cool buttons. That one adds a file or layer. That one adds a folder. This one will copy whatever thing you have selected, so it just made another folder 6. If we have this button here, it'll merge those two layers. So as you can see, I have that layer with that weird 3. I have this layer with this weird 3, right? They're separate layers. Do that, they merge into one. Very cool. This is the delete option. Self-explanatory. You delete shit. Very cool. So there's a lot of little buttons up here. The protect alpha button. It just makes it so you can't do anything on that layer. So it's so that if you finished that layer and you don't want to accidentally mess it up, you put on protect alpha. The lock also has the same function. The clipping option makes it so that anything you draw on this layer won't appear unless it is directly on top of things present on the layer below. So this is usually how I shade. This is how I make shading simple, so that I don't have to worry about going out of the boundaries of whatever I've drawn underneath, right? That looks like crap. Don't worry about it. But, you know. See? It's easy to shade. You just use that. Very cool. But you can also... So imagine I've got this layer, right? I can go over it, make a clipping layer, and this next bit is just a lot. You don't need to memorize it, but it's just like good. There are a lot of blending options, which is basically just how it overlays onto the layer below. It can be clipping or not clipping, it doesn't matter. So multiply will just make whatever color you have darker over the layer underneath, you know? The add option it adds it adds the hue. You see this? Oh, wait. I have a better way to demonstrate this. Okay, so we've got a little shape. Let's make this guy not a clipping, actually. And we're gonna take a random color like green. Green. So that's just what the green looks like normally, right? We're gonna have a nice little streak go through this. So when you hit multiply, it makes it darker. It like adds the hues. I don't know the math, but it makes it darker. When you add, it makes it lighter. Very cool. When you make it divide, it switches the color to its opposite. And the opposite of green is red. So if I take yellow and I do that, it doesn't do anything because yellow is a lot. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Oh, if you make it more saturated, see, it turns purple. If we add some blue, makes it yellow. Very cool, right? It just turns it to its opposite. If we hit overlay, it's like I said, I don't know the math. You don't really need to memorize exactly what everyone does. If you're trying to mess with it, just go through the list and see which one looks coolest. If you hit screen, it does that. This is usually for textures. Overlay is also usually for textures. It funks with the colors, you know? Lighten. So you see how the blue is like, hold on. So let's take a dark color, right? Put it over the red, it like barely shows up, right? It's actually mixing with the blue. That's why it's. I'll take a brush that doesn't have a mixing option. I put it over the red, it barely shows up because it's only supposed to show up if it is lighter than the color underneath. And alternatively, with the darken option, you can barely see the yellow because yellow is lighter than red, therefore it won't darken the layer underneath. Same thing with the green, it's only barely darker, so it only barely shows up. The red is way dark, or the blue is way darker, so it shows up, you know? If we go over here to the difference, it divides the colors. It's weird. Like I said, I don't know the math. Don't need to. The dodge option is basically like making it it's like turning up the saturate. It's like making a deep fried picture, basically. You turn the opacity of that down. It makes it less severe. You know, you can mess with the opacity on all of these, right? So if we've got normal, not normal, multiply. I usually use multiply for shading. I'll take the shade on the bottom and I'll put it on the multiply layer. It keeps the tone similar. You can just lighten it up by changing the opacity. So, yes. I want to get rid of that. Okay. So, if we hit burn, it also kind of does that deep fried thing, but like, it's weird. The soft light, kind of self-explanatory. It's just softer, I guess. The hard light, wow, hard, jarring, very cool. The hue, I'll talk about like what hue and tone and those terms mean in another video because I know Zach probably doesn't know what the fuck that means, so I'm gonna have to explain it to him. But it changes. Wow, it changes. The saturation, or no, color. So it tries to affect the color of, like, it, since that's yellow, right? This is the color slider, right? This is what color is. So this yellow, right? It makes the red stay on this like slide. You see how that doesn't move between these two hues? Very cool. Same thing with this, and same thing with the blue. It changes the color of the red underneath. And this is the color. So if we go to hue, if we take this yellow, you see that? It does the same thing basically. But yeah, it does the same thing basically, but it's just a little, wait, so hue and then color. Yeah, it's a little wonky. I don't really know the difference between the two, but there's probably one. The saturation, see the saturation of the red? It just affects the saturation of the thing underneath. Very cool. And then brightness. This yellow, see how bright that is? Wow, it makes the bright. I'll explain in the color video, but this square way of displaying colors doesn't actually display what's darker and what's lighter properly, because the color is just really complicated like that. Red is darker than yellow, even if it's got the same like saturation, and like even if it has no black in it, no white in it, it's just pure unadulterated red, it's going to be darker than yellow, even if that yellow is in the same corner, right? The square is just ineffective at actually explaining colors, so you just kind of gotta figure that shit out on your own. Hold on, I gotta take a sip of my water. Water ain't never tastes so good. Now, I wonder what else I could go over. We'll play with some brushes, right? So, a lot of these aren't the original ones. The taper, taper 2, more taper, and no taper, those are obviously mine because they have stupid names. The flat brush, I think might be original to the program. It might not be. I don't know. The soft, I believe, is mine. Maybe. I know the textured oil is probably original to the program, but I've fiddled with the settings quite a bit. Or no. I added this one. I imported this one. And the textured oil is the same except with like different settings. You see how it's like kind of softer? Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't go over brushes. I'll go over brushes in a different. I'll go over it in the line art program or setting. So there's a lot of options up here, as you can see. Oh wait, there's these two. There's these ones. I'll go over them very briefly. This one just makes it so that everything you draw is in that line. This, it's a grid. Wow, very cool. This you can mess with. It's for perspective stuff, right? Bam! Look at that. Very cool. Fiddle with that, mess with it, figure out how it works. I'm not going to explain it because it's complicated. This is just create radius. Wow. And then this, circle. Wow. These two correspond. If you like move one, it'll move the other, because they go hand in hand. This one is kind of cool. It is the purpose of it is to help you create smooth curved lines, right? Very cool. And you can like move this over and do it again. Very cool. This guy is also for like perspective stuff. Or wait. I don't know why he's not working. Oh well. File. Oop, that's not what I meant to do. Ignore the music I'm listening to in the background. So there's the new via clipboard. It just like copies what you like did last. Very fun. Open, obviously that's to open your other files. I'd recommend making a specific folder for all your MDPs. MDPs are the file type that FireAlpaca uses. You can identify them by the little FireAlpaca thing. Very cool. You can open recent files, which are just the ones that you've had open recently. You can open things as just a layer. So if you go to, yeah, it is just for images. There's the save options, obviously the export option, which will just like create an easier downloadable file. To export as a CMYK PSD, I don't actually know what that means. You're gonna have to figure that out. Like I said, this isn't me being like an absolute professional with FireAlpaca. This is just me as an artist trying to explain how I use the program. There's the print option. Obviously, if you want to print it, probably you shouldn't. The environmental settings, I never used that. The brush environmental settings, I've never used that. Shortcut setting, I've never used that. I should probably figure out what those do. Those are probably like convenient. They sound convenient, but I've just never used them. There's the undo option. Obviously, I don't know why they have that in the edit when it's right here. So, in the edit, there's the cut option. So that's if you have, say, this, you have this selected, you can hit cut, bam, it's gone. Wow. Alternatively, there's a copy and a paste, self-explanatory. There's a crop, which will delete the area outside of your canvas. So, yes. There will be your rotate left. it'll just rotate the whole thing. I'm gonna put it back. I want it back. Okay. There's the flip. You can change the size of the image here. So say I want to increase it. I'm gonna make the width 2000. Bam. That just kind of it increases the file size, or not the whatever. You know what I mean. There's the layer section. You don't really need to use this that much because like these are cool. It doesn't really do much. It's weird. Like I don't really know. I've never used that before in my life, so you can like merge everything. It's very there's some like useful things in here. I just barely use them. The filter, that's for the comic like things, I believe. There's a select, transform. Yeah. There is another transform option, which is the mesh transform. This is kind of wonky in this program, but if you figure out it can be pretty good. It just kind of like, imagine it's made this 2D plane into semi 3D. Not really, but that's an easy way to understand it, because look at that. It looks like you're manipulating a little 3D thing. Very cool. That's about it for that. The snap, I've never used that. The color, this will... yeah, so the color wheel also, it's like the same. It doesn't really display things very well. I kind of like the color bar better because, yeah. The lock palette, I don't know what that... I've never used that before in my life. Oh, that's not what I meant. Okay, I'm not gonna press that. So the view, there's a lot of stuff you can do here. The only things I've really ever used is changing the transparent background and going into onion skin mode. Onion skin mode is basically the animating mode. You know, you can make it so that it always displays the first frame. You can make it, it convenient, Tool, I barely use this. This is just like changing like button settings. It's weird. The window, you can just add windows. You can add a palette bar. I never use that. You can just like do that on a layer. Honestly, this is my setup. It doesn't have to be yours. You can make this point like bigger so you can look at your thing more. You can even do that if you please. I don't know why you would, but you can just like change the size of everything for your viewing pleasure. And then the help, you can like restore like the original brushes, open a folder where you can configure things. Very cool. And I would think that that's about it for this video. It's 30 minutes. Very cool. Obviously, like I said, I'm not like a professional. I'm putting this on the internet, and people are going to scrutinize me if anybody at all sees this. But this is for my wonderful and beautiful friends, Nina, Christian, and Zach, who I love very dearly. I really hope Zach like processes this video. TBH, honest, to be honest, I think he might just like not understand a lot of things I say, which is like, I'm predicting that. I know that's gonna happen. So very cool. Oh, there's a couple things. You can change the opacity of the brushes. This will restore its original size. I didn't say that before, but that's me saying it now, so I've said it. There's things in this navigator. These buttons are all pretty self-explanatory. If you have this here, you can flip it. It's mostly for like if you're trying to do symmetry. You can see like if you've made a face asymmetrical or not. Yeah. Yeah. You can rotate it. Rotating is very good because you always want to draw curves in your own direction, because if you do them in the other direction, they'll end up wonky because your hands just aren't meant to do that. Just have things... so if your dominant hand is your right hand, going in this direction with your curves will make them look better. If you go this direction, you see they kind of look weird. You have less control. So go this way, you'll have the most control. Very cool. There's the settings. You can just kind of change the name. You can change the effect, the watercolor edge. That's really weird. I barely ever use that because it's weird and wonky and not very pleasing to look at. And I think that's it. That's it now. Wait, there's the correction. But that's also kind of self-explanatory. It's just a smoothness setting. It kind of doesn't really work with the Wacom tablet. Not very much. So, like, this is me on 40. This is me on 0. It's pretty much the same. Oh, last bit for Nina. And also Christian, I believe he also has a Wacom. You're gonna want to download a driver. Well, you have to, or else your thing won't work. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can change your pen settings here. These are my settings. If you want to duplicate them, you probably won't want to. Everybody has a different feel, likes different things. Yeah, here's my mapping. I have it so that it's only set to my first monitor, because if you have it set to both, it like maps it out weird, so when you move sideways, it moves really fast. It's like kind of upsetting. This is my settings for the side buttons. I have my undo and redo and my copy paste. For convenience, I got my Clip Studio Paint. I never use Clip Studio Paint. Yeah. So you can make a local backup of your settings. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. You can check the driver. If your tablet's ever not really working, like the pen isn't responding, just do a driver check, and even if it says driver check complete, if something's going wrong, if your tablet buttons aren't working, just hit restart driver. Doing that won't really affect much. Oh well, by doing that, I've made it so that I need to restart FireAlpaca. But that's it for real this time. For real. I hope this was okay. And this is going to be me signing out. Okay, class is adjourned.